My name is Misty. Hi, I'm Nicole.
Hi, Nicole. How was your trip over here today?
It's okay, a little bit cold.
I know it's really cold outside right now. I'm not really into the cold weather. I like the sunshine and the heat, but guess we have to go through this too.
Yes.
Alright, there's a couple of things that I need to tell you. I know that you have already signed your informed consent.
Yes.
And with that, you also signed a confidentiality statement. And I just want to clarify that on the confidentiality, everything that you say to me is held within strict confidence. The only time that would ever not be the case would be if you were talking about harming yourself or harming someone else.
Right.
Then I would be required by law to let someone know, that was your intentions. But anything else, please feel free to, tell me anything and know that, it won't go any further than this room. So, tell me a little bit about, what you are expecting by coming to these sessions. Tell me some things that you want to get out of them.
I think my husband's actually really pushed me to come.
Mm-hmm.
He's been telling me for a long time. He's seen a decline in my mood.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'd really like to just maybe learn how to come to grips or deal with, manage my feelings about my son and what I've dealt with him, and maybe find some resources to help me with it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to fulfill your expectations. I want to do and attain the goals that we set, that you set, and I will help you, and we will work towards those goals to the benefit of you and what your expectations are. Not something, I don't want to put anything on you that's not what you're here for. Do you understand?
Yes.
That? Okay. All right. So are you comfortable? You need a drink, or are you?
No, I'm good right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you said something about your son. So tell me, what's really got you here, why your husband is concerned, and tell me the story a little bit more than what you just said. Expand on that for me.
Okay. Well, I've got a 20-year-old son, and he is currently incarcerated. It has been since he was 17, and I have a lot of ups and downs with emotions with that. And my husband really feels like I need to talk to somebody other than him sometimes about it, because he, first of all, doesn't know how to help me sometimes, and he gets frustrated with me sometimes, and feels like I need help beyond just talking to him about it.
Right.
So he's really pushed me to come, but I've just dealt with a lot of emotions from my son being incarcerated.
Tell me about some of those emotions.
A lot of times I feel guilty. There's stuff I could have done differently with him. I worry about him a lot, whether he's in danger or how he is emotionally or mentally. Physically. I mean, he, you don't want him to get beat up or anything like that. I worry that there's a lot of worries that come to, what he'll get involved in, and there's gangs and drugs and everything else in prison, and that worries me, and it concerns me about when he gets out, what's going to happen, and how our family's going to blend back together after he gets out. And it's going to be very stressful and weird.
Yes, I can see where, that would be, something in the future that we would need to talk about, because that's a very big transition in life, whenever he gets back, and so in that, I would say, if you wanted to, not saying that it would have to be with me, but I would suggest maybe if you felt like it, that you would need counseling during that transition period, for sure. What I'm going to do now is what we call a psychosocial assessment, and you pretty much told me, why you're here, and so let's talk about some of the goals that you want to obtain during your sessions, and they're not going to be met today, and they're not going to be met tomorrow, but there's some short-term goals that we can look forward to that can make your days get easier, and then there's some long-term goals, such as thinking about in the future getting some counseling during the transitional period, if that's something that you want. I don't want to set the goals for you. I will help you set the goals, and then I will help you to try to obtain them. This is about you, and this is about making you feel better, and trying to do something maybe to lessen that guilt feeling that you say that you have. So let's look at that. Let's set a couple of short-term goals, and then a long-term goal. What would be a good short-term goal that we could start working on? How is your relationship with Cody right now? I mean, would you say that it's good, it's medium, or it's non-existent?
Good.
Good.
And I feel like it's good because I'm kind of all he has right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so he relies on me, where, he did everything in his power to get away from me as a teenager. Now he's relying on me. And, I don't know if he would be doing that so much if he was out or had other people to lean on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's classic parent-child relationship anyway. When they need you, they come.
Right.
But right now it's good. I mean, I think he appreciates me a little bit more now because I'm there for him. But sometimes I feel like I'm too there for him.
Right.
So, but it's good right now.
Okay. What are some ways that you could do that would keep this relationship good? What are some things that you are doing? What are some things that maybe you could do in addition to what you're doing to keep this relationship going good?
I think that because there are times that I feel like he almost takes advantage of me, and then I get angry at myself for allowing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I do stand up and put my foot down with him, and he knows what he's doing,
Right.
and I stop whatever I might be doing that is allowing myself to be taken advantage of.
Which that is really good. That's a
But it takes a while for me to do that, and so that it's really hard to do that.
It takes a very, very strong person, especially in that situation. So I want to commend you on doing that. It's not the easiest road,
Right.
but you know, if you allow him to take advantage of you now, then when he is released,
Right.
he would probably, stay with that kind of behavior. And, every mom, of course, would be so excited, when their child is released and, back. And so you're going to be, or let me say, most people, I don't,
Right.
know specifically about your case, but so many people would be very vulnerable at that
Right.
time.
Right.
So maybe we could set a goal that could help you not be so vulnerable. Maybe in with this good relationship, uh, with our number one goal could be about maybe keeping healthy boundaries
Yeah.
and enforcing them. Even when it's hard. Does that sound like?
It does. And I think that's one of my biggest things that I need to work on with him is just a lot of times just saying no to him
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling guilty about it.
And I'm sure that it's going to be a lot easier for you to say no to him when he's kept by, being incarcerated than it will be when he's been incarcerated all those years and then he's back face to face. And, mothers love their children. We want our children to be happy, and so that can be hard, to say no. But it's not to be mean. It's not. It's for his own good. Do you agree with
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say number one, to keep the good relationship, we're going to set firm boundaries and do the best that you can by not letting those boundaries get broken.
Yeah.
So he will know that you are consistent.
Right.
So if you can't break your boundaries now, then be less likely, to break your boundaries when he gets out.
Right.
So, and you said he was 17 when he first got in trouble. Well,
When he first was incarcerated as a juvenile
mm-hmm.
in the juvenile system, and then ended up doing something else to get into the adult system.
Okay, alright. And his problem started right at teenage years, around
About 15.
15?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you had said earlier that his first offenses were that he would just run away.
Yeah.
And for no, not that you guys had fought or whatever,
right.
he would just take off.
Right. And it centered around a girl.
Mm-hmm.
But it just progressively got worse and worse. And he, there was probably about 7 times that he ran away. And the last time it was about a month and a half that he was gone. And you know, that there was a lot of stress in that. Just not knowing where he was, if he was okay. And a lot of times I didn't really worry if he was okay because I knew he could take care of himself because that's just the kind of kid he is. But it was just not knowing, I guess, where he was. And
I'm sure that the not knowing would be so hard, you know, to deal with. And, you know, tell me how that has impacted other relationships in your life.
Well, he was doing a lot of stealing and stuff, and most of it was from family. And I'm not married to his father, so that put a big strain on that relationship because he was stealing stuff that my husband might have had from years ago that his papa gave him or something. You know, my son had actually stolen 3 rings from him. One was his papa's wedding ring, and one was his dad's wedding ring, and one was, you know, it was like very personal stuff that it cost place. And it's just put some really strained. I'm kind of in the middle. Like he's very angry with my son, you know, and then I'm trying to be in the middle of that. You know, I love my kid and I don't have to stand up, but I'm also like getting defensive towards my husband. And that's and there's been a lot of ups and downs with that. So I say that's probably one of my husband's biggest arguments. Is stuff that's going on with him. And there's where the boundaries that we were talking about. If I don't set those boundaries, it can cause problems with me and my husband. And I think, you know, it's kind of like I have to make a choice, you know, almost sometimes between, he doesn't make me make a choice between him and my kid, but there comes a point when your kid's an adult now, that it's like, I need to work on my marriage, not my kid, you know, but it's hard to balance that.
So what do you think a good short-term goal would be, like working towards your relationship with your husband, to solidify and strengthen that bond, so when it is tested, when he gets out, or maybe before he gets out, your son, what can you do maybe to make your husband know that you love him and you know you're committed to your marriage, yet you have a son who is incarcerated, but you still love him and you know will want to be around him when he gets out. And you know what's something that we could set. What do you think would strengthen your marriage?
Well, first of all, I think I have found myself almost wanting, not necessarily to lie to my husband about certain things, but not tell him. Because I don't want to make, like, my son has gotten in trouble while he's in jail or something, and it's like I don't want to tell him.
Because somehow that will come around to you, having to make
he's like, he's no good, or, which he doesn't say stuff like that, but he just, it just, I don't want to make him look any worse than he already does.
Right.
You know,
I understand that.
And so I feel like I'm lying by not telling
Like,
a lot of times. Certain things.
what I'm hearing you say is, you feel like you're lying by omission.
Right.
So, do you feel like you need to let him know these things? Because you've already said that you feel guilty, about your son, about your marriage, yourself. You have a lot of guilt. Do you think, because you feel like you're lying, do you feel like you may need to start letting him in on the cold hard truth? Say if your son gets out and he says, remember that time such and such, and your husband doesn't know, do you think that could cause problems in of itself?
Probably. Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you? So just maybe being completely honest. And what Cody does in jail is not a reflection of you. It's not, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that he's there. It's not your fault if he gets in trouble while he's there. But keeping secrets, can cause more guilt to come.
Right.
And then, you're always on your toes about what's going to come out. And, having to be second guessing yourself at Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
And people are telling stories and, oh yeah, this happened, and,
Right. Right. Yeah. I've even, I guess, been guilty of giving my son money, like commissary money and stuff, and my husband not know about it. It's something that we haven't discussed or something, and I know he would be upset because, he's kind of the mindset he's took enough from us already, and so, and I totally understand that. I don't disagree with him.
But you don't really think about your child needing or wanting something in that.
Right. And so, I know I need to be more honest with my husband about what's going on and stuff like that to not have that guilt.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's super. That's a great goal. It's pretty much, our first goal was, you have a good relationship with Cody, and you're going to set those boundaries to keep that. So now what we can do on this second goal is to, what's your husband's name again? John, okay. To be more open and honest with John, little at a time. You don't have to just, start bearing your soul or anything. I mean, as you feel comfortable. And then going ahead and maybe start setting some boundaries with him.
Right.
He may be in the mindset of Cody has took everything and, we've given him enough or whatever. But then, what I've heard you say is coming from your side is you're his mother, you care for him, you love him, you already feel guilty that he's there. What ifs? And so you want to make it as comfortable as it can be in a concrete cell block, in 26-degree weather. So, maybe, being more honest, and then just, at some point, maybe just have a heart-to-heart with John. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a great marriage, and, this is just been a bump in the road, in your journey together, and just just kind of tell him how you feel and say, you know, this is my son, and you know, this is why I do what I do, and I love you, and I want you to, you know, be aware and be a support instead of something else to feel guilty over.
Right.
Is that something that you think? You know,
Yeah,
that you
yeah, because normally, I mean, I've said stuff like that to him before, but it's usually not quite that nice.
Right, I mean,
Yeah, it's usually in an argument that that
Right.
kind of stuff comes out. Like, you don't understand, it's my son, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never usually a calm conversation
Right.
at that point.
And so, what I'm hearing you say is that when you bring up maybe trying to set some boundaries or being more honest with them, it's usually in a fight or disagreement.
Right.
So let's put the goal down as just, you know, you would know when the time is right, you know, when you're not at, you know, up here with emotions, you know, when you're just pretty calm and level-headed, both of you, you know, not disagreeing about anything else, you know, just have an open and honest relationship, and you know, let him know where you stand, you know, and say, you know, I want more than anything for, you know, you to support me, and for that to be one less thing I have to feel guilty over, you know. And, you know, you can just see and go from there, but at least you're being honest, and, you know, that's all you can do, is just, you know, be honest and, you know, say I love you and I want your support. So, we'll set that for number 2.
Okay.
So, the short-term goals are to keep a good relationship with Cody and to keep your boundaries set so he doesn't contemplate, you know, whenever he gets out, he can get by with everything and anything. You know, you're going to be very consistent in what you say and do. So that's a big issue. And then one with John, your husband, you're going to try to be more open and honest about, you know, what you're doing for Cody, or about what is happening with him within, you know, the jail or the prison system, you know, if he's getting in trouble or anything like that. And, you know, these may take a while. I mean, you know, they are short term, but, you know, short term can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So these are just a couple of things to shoot for. So the next thing on our psychosocial assessment form is mental health. Do you have any mental health issues yourself, such as depression, or have you ever been diagnosed with anything from a psychiatrist? Have you ever had thoughts of suicide or homicide? And, you know, is there any mental health issues with you or your family?
Well, my family, like biological family, basically is limited. My mother was adopted, and I didn't know my real dad until a couple of years ago. So I've always been very limited on any kind of family history.
Mm-hmm.
But personally, my mother has had a lot of depression over the years, and I see that in myself a lot. I did take an antidepressant for a few years, and in the last 6 months or so, I've weaned off of that.
Mhm.
And I see a big change. And I mostly got on that because I'm very quick tempered,
Mhm.
and it kind of kept me from going off.
Right.
And I've noticed I'm very quick tempered again.
Oh, really?
And so I've been looking at maybe talking to somebody about that again. Because once I snap, I can't control it. It doesn't stop. So, but, and just general depression that's come from just dealing with my son, and then he's gone, and so like when the holidays come up and stuff like that, that's really hard.
I'm sure.
I've had a little bit of depression.
Mhm. So have you ever sought counseling before this?
No.
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 So what I'm hearing you say is that you have limited history because your mother was adopted, and you only got to know your real biological father within the last couple of years. Your mother has dealt with depression, and then would you say a couple of years ago or before that, have you had depression? Has it been something you've dealt with throughout your lifetime, or just after you got older, or situations? How would you
I
describe
don't know if I've generalized it as depression all the years before. It's more, I don't know if it's like anger or something. There's been something for a lot of years, and that it was like, and I think it was more around my menstrual cycle. I would always be able to pinpoint, like, I would have this just complete rage outburst, and then the next day or the day after I would start.
Okay.
And so I started talking to my doctor about it probably 8 years ago or so. And, he suggested that, I could try some sort of medication. He said, but if you're just wanting to control one day a month, there's other options, counseling and that kind of thing. And so I didn't get on any medication for a lot of years, and I would try to control. I'd be like, okay, I know that this one day a month, or within this week period, I might have an outburst of some sort. Somebody's gonna make me mad, and I would tell myself, just I'm not gonna go off. And I would go off. So I finally was like, I need something.
Right.
There's other stuff going on, and I was just like, I'm done. I need something. And it helped, but sometimes I feel like it helped in the regard that it just made me not care.
So
And when I didn't care about that, stuff that is really bothering me, I didn't care about anything. So, I didn't do dishes because I didn't care that they were in the sink. And I didn't clean because I didn't care. And laundry piled up because I don't care. Whatever.
Right, so what I'm hearing you say is that, you've had depression or rage for quite so many years, but just in the last couple have taken medication for it, and it helped in a way that day that you didn't have an outburst or outrage or any of those feelings, yet it left you not caring about anything,
Right.
such as the dishes or the laundry or anything, anybody, or you just had the I don't care attitude, which
Right.
you didn't feel comfortable being that way
Right.
all month long when you just needed something for one day.
Right.
So, your doctor has been aware for all these years about that. Now, did did he start weaning you off, or is this something that you just decided to do yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of my own doctor.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
And I feel like I did it right. You know, I didn't cold turkey or anything. I literally over like 6 months, I weaned off because I had stopped taking it once before and not done it as slowly. And it was, I was seeing trails and it was bad. So I needed to do it really slowly. But I have seen an increase in my temper.
Over
quickness
the
of my
last
temper.
6 months?
Yeah.
Increase.
And my husband has seen it too.
So does he say, okay, honey, let's go back to the doctor? How does he express that?
No, he didn't like down me for getting on it because he went through a period of time in his life that he had to take some medication. But after a couple of years, he's like, well, do you think it's time to get off of that? Because there were other side effects, like sexual side effects and that kind of thing. And so he was getting pretty tired of that. And I'm like, I was almost afraid to come off of it because I didn't want to go back to being just angry. And so I finally weaned myself, he pushed me. Do you think it's time to come off? Do you think it's time to come off? Yeah, and I'm like, whatever. So I did. And then now we're arguing more. Right. He's not much of an arguer. He pretty much just claims up that we argue more now. I'm quicker to get offended, kind of thing.
Get your feelings
hurt.
Yeah. Okay, so let me make sure I get this right. You weaned yourself off this medication over a 6-month time period, and your husband was encouraging you to do so. Not he was just being supportive and saying, I think you can do it without it, that type. And now after the 6 months, and you're not on anything, you are feeling that you're getting angry quicker. You get your feelings hurt more often. Maybe read into things a little bit deeper than what needs to be.
Yeah.
So what?
I mentioned like possibly going back on something, and even maybe trying something different because it might not have the same side effects or whatever.
Right.
And he's not very supportive of that. He's like, I think you can do it without it. And I'm like, well, you don't like me now, so.
Right. I mean, does he verbalize or suggest in any way that he knows that maybe you are arguing more than you have in the past, or does he recognize that your feelings have changed, since being off the medication?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. So, just putting this out there, I don't know what you were on, and I don't prescribe medication. I'm not licensed to do that, but I do know that there are very many varieties of medication, and there are some new things that have come on the market within the last few years. So if you did decide, and specifically with the side effects for women, there are not as much side effects as before, as the older come. So maybe you need to, take him with you is a possibility, when you go to see your doctor, so he can hear the pros and the cons. If that's something that you had decided to do, maybe to get back on something. But I might suggest that if you felt comfortable, having him hear what the doctor would suggest or have you do, because you don't have to feel that way, and maybe coming to therapy, and getting this stuff out and helping with the guilt feelings and things like that, that might help you if you get rid of some of those feelings, not to be so angry.
Right.
Because anger is a secondary emotion to being hurt or
Right.
Other things, guilt, things of that nature. So that's just some things to think about. It's totally your decision, and only do what you're comfortable with. So, what did your mother actually do for her depression? Did she ever seek help from a doctor or counselor?
I know she has mentioned that she has said stuff to a doctor before about feeling depressed or whatever feelings she was having. And she's never been on any kind of medication for it that I'm aware of. And she's usually pretty forward with me about that kind of thing. They've never felt like when she would tell them what her issues were, they basically tell her that those weren't her issues. That it was like a non-working husband. That was, but they never prescribed anything for her. And she's had one instance where she took a lot of pills because she was fed up with a marriage and ended up having to go to the hospital for that.
Oh no.
And but I see a lot of the same behavior coming out in me now of just kind of like withdrawing from people in general. And she's done that for years. She's very withdrawn from social stuff. And I've seen more so since I've come off my medication, I've seen myself withdrawing more than I was.
So, again, let me make sure that I'm getting this right. Since you have been decreasing and getting off of your depression medication, you're more easily angered, quicker to be angry, to get your feelings hurt, and then just other side effects that come with the medication. And your husband does not want you to go back on them, really. I mean, he's not saying you can't, but
Right.
he's really discouraging that. But you see yourself withdrawing, and would you say isolating?
Yes.
Isolating yourself. And you seem, to me, just from what I've seen, that you're a cheerful, social kind of being, and that might be taking that away from you. Would that be correct? That the medication, being off the medication, might take your social behaviors that that you like to be around people. You like to have bonfires. You want to be included and stuff like that. To pulling yourself back and not including yourself in the group and not taking steps forward to have people around. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. I mean, and even like with what you said about having people around, having bonfires and that kind of thing, it's like I found myself not, it's more my husband wanting to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find ways to keep myself busy, taking care of things, quote unquote,
Right.
so that I don't have to talk to people when they're there. I find ways to hide and go fill the coffee pot and
Right.
just so that I look busy.
Mhm.
So I don't have to talk to people.
Right.
I'm very, there's a lot of times I just try not to talk to people.
Right. That sounds like a little bit that you may be having some signs and symptoms of anxiety. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, by you know, what if the coffee pot didn't need to be filled, and uh, you know, there's nothing that needed to be done, and you're just stuck right there, you know, in the center of all these people. Would that cause you to feel uncomfortable?
No, because I have this gift of faking my way through things, but I'm really sitting there going, go away.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right,
Just
right.
go away. You know?
So it's not so much anxiety. You could deal with the situation and just wish you were somewhere else, but
Right.
not being
No,
like, oh my
not
gosh,
like-
what am I gonna say? What am I gonna
Yeah,
say?
no.
Okay.
It's not really anxiety. It's just, yeah, like you said, just wishing that I was somewhere else.
Right.
Alone.
Okay. All right.
Or,
Yeah. So it. Yeah. That's not anxiety. I mean, you're just wishing for a change. You know, you just don't want to be there.
right.
You don't want to have. I mean, make sure that I'm saying this right. Because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But say, you know, you just do not want to be in that position. You'd rather be by yourself
Right.
and just, you know, I won't bother you if you don't bother me.
Right.
You know, kind of situation.
And I have noticed that with my son being incarcerated, people want to ask about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a lot of thinking about why is it that I all of a sudden don't want to talk to people. And I think I don't want to answer their questions.
Mm-hmm. And probably, you know, just to clarify that, you've probably told the same story 100 different times, and you just don't want to have to tell it one more time. You know,
I've even gotten that way with my mother. I don't
could
even
you
want
take
to tell
this
her.
piece of paper and read about it? Because
Right.
I'm tired of saying it.
Right. I'm even that way with my mom. My mom's always wanting to know how he is, and she wants to go see him, and I don't want to take her because she can't drive him herself, and I'm like, and then she gets her feelings hurt, and I'm like, I don't know, I just,
Then what comes? The guilt.
right.
Then
Right.
you have
Exactly.
guilt with mom, guilt with son, guilt with husband. Just clarifying that, you know, that, you know, so every way you turn, it's somehow going to fall back on you and
Right.
make you feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where, you know, these boundaries are, that's really going to help you. I mean, I think that, you know, if we keep those goals and you strive to do that, maybe you can take some of that guilt off of you and know, you know, you're doing what you can do.
And I think I've been guilty most of my life of not setting boundaries with people
Mm-hmm.
in general, like just anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to, and that's where guilt comes from, is I haven't set those boundaries, and I always think that I need to do more for others than I do, and end up feeling guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the not wanting to talk to people though, I really, a lot of times they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, hey, you know, and I'm really like, I'm awful, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
So, also in your mental health history, you know, I know your mother was adopted and you've only known your biological father for the last couple of years, and your son being incarcerated, and, you know, just things with life. Have you ever had any thoughts of suicide?
I don't know that I've ever thought out a plan or anything, but you know, there have actually been times where I'm driving down the road and go, if I cram into this tree right here, would anybody really give a flip?
Mm-hmm.
You know, those kind of thoughts. Or when I'm really down, I'm like, I really just don't want to be here. But it's not to the point where I'm like, and this is how I'm not going to be here.
Right.
You know, I don't think I've ever went that far with it, but just would it even matter if I wasn't here?
Would anybody care? Would you?
Right.
Yes. And you know, when did those thoughts start?
I've had those kind of thoughts through my teenage years, even.
Okay. But you never had a plan.
No, and those mostly came with relationship issues, like romantic relationship issues. Any kind of, that's where those thoughts usually come from.
Right. Have you ever had any homicidal thoughts? Like, you know, you thought you might really want to kill somebody, you know, not just, I wish they were dead, but thought, I really wish they were dead. You know, I might have to do that.
I can't say that I have, like, seriously.
Right.
No.
Okay. Alright, I'm gonna move on down here. As far as, like, you know, from childhood on, have you ever had any abuse history? As far as, like, you know, when you were a child, you know, being out exposed in the weather, or being neglected in any other ways, you know, any type of abuse, or any abuse like in your family?
I don't think I've ever had really any kind of physical abuse growing up or anything like that. I never felt like I was abused. There were several years of being poor, basically, growing up and doing without electricity and that kind of thing a little bit. I never felt abused or completely neglected. I never went without food, for sure. But I think probably allowing myself to be not sexually abused. Well, I guess it would be, you know, just like letting guys talk you into, and you don't want to. But, you know, that kind of stuff.
And what age did that start?
14. And
were these older men or just older boys, or?
At that point, you know, at that point it was probably like within a couple of years of my age. But as I got older, it would be older guys, like in their 20s and stuff. That would, you know, it was, I don't know that I was afraid to tell them no, or just didn't want to be embarrassed or degraded. I don't know. It was degrading anyway, so.
Right.
And then in relationships later on, like 18, starting about 18, there's a lot of emotional abuse, I would think.
From who?
A boyfriend.
Okay.
And it wasn't like you're ugly, you know, kind of, you're not worth anything. It was more, his actions of trying to, make me feel like I wasn't worth being with,
Right.
and that was an on again, off again 10-year relationship that was just ridiculous. And my child's father was just a jerk. So there was a lot of emotional abuse there, I think.
So,
verbal abuse, I guess, is
verbal.
a better word for it.
Have any of your family members been abused that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. Looking back at me raising my kid, there's sometimes that I feel like somebody probably would have thought that I was somewhat abusive to my kid. Yeah, and I feel like that's, I think, where a lot of my guilt comes from, is thinking I was abusing him, and not meaning to, but I was verbally abusive, and with just, this poor kid sitting there and I'm screaming at him, and he's just sitting there taking it, and he didn't deserve it, and just for stuff like just being a kid.
And you had said that you were a teenage mother.
Yes.
Also, how old were you?
I was 16 when I had him.
16 when you had him. Okay. All right. Any biological or medical? I know you don't have much information, but any big health concerns with yourself or anything? Health problems.
I have a thyroid disorder, and I know in my research on that I found that depression and mood disorders kind of are very prevalent when you have thyroid. It evidently affects everything.
Exactly. It controls so many hormones.
It does.
So having a thyroid problem, what I'm sure the doctors would tell you, to get it checked often, at least once a year to make sure that, your depression or your rage or something is not coming from, a depletion of the thyroid hormones as opposed to psychological.
Right.
So, do you have any spiritual or religious affiliations that affect your life?
I've attended the same church for about the last 10 years. And I found myself over about the last 2 years kind of withdrawing. I mean, my husband plays drums in church, and we've been very involved over the years, but it's like the last couple of years I found myself like just, I'm not getting up and going. I'm too tired to get up. I can go weeks without going to church now. But I used to be very involved in it, and it's more like, and when I do go, I find myself, I sit in the same little seat way over here, and then when it's over, I don't, I'm like, if somebody comes and talks to me, but I don't like put myself out there and go talk to people, and then I'm out the door. And so that's where I found myself kind of withdrawn from people too.
Okay. Tell me a little bit, I know we've touched on this throughout the interview, a little bit about your social systems. Do you have like a best friend, or do you have a group, a club, anything that you're involved outside of the family?
I do have a friend that I would consider a best friend, and we've been kind of distant for about the past about the last year.
So about the last year, but you had said, you know, you're not as close in the last year, but you feel like you could call her at any time, or that she could call you and you guys could pick back up. And,
Yes.
okay, that's great. That's great. All right. I want to just kind of do a brief overview of your family. You you're close with your mother, whom she was adopted, and so that makes your health history, you know, not be as strong. She lives in Tellico. Your son is 20, and he is currently incarcerated. And you're married to John, and you've been married to him for about 8.5 years. Okay, and then your biological father, you have only known him for approximately 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Okay, all right, and your brother that you grew up with, he lives in Tellico, close to your mom. Okay, and that's not a bad relationship or a good relationship. It's, you see each other on holidays, you're nice, but
Right.
you don't have a relationship really outside that.
Not so much.
Okay. And when you met your new dad, or your biological dad, he came with 4 or 5 new siblings.
5.
5, okay. All right, and you've met 3, and we'll meet the 4th one next month. Okay, in December. Okay. And with John came 3 stepchildren.
Yep.
You've got 15, 18, which they come when they're on school break.
Right.
And come to see you, and a 29-year-old, and she just really doesn't have contact much with her dad.
Not so much,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And let's go over I want to summarize pretty much everything that we've gone over, and make sure that I have the correct information. And if there's anything that you think needs to be included that I've left out, or anything, you know, that is not right, you know, let me know. So you came in with the presenting problem of your son being incarcerated, and the feelings that came with that, such as guilt, anger, frustration, things of that you want to deal with. Okay. Your mental health history, again, is somewhat limited due to your mother being adopted and only knowing your father for a couple of years. Your mother has dealt with depression. You have dealt with depression since for about 8 years, and that's when you told your doctor, and waited a few years, and then he put you on some kind of medication.
Right.
You didn't like the side effects.
No.
Your husband didn't like the side effects, but it did take care of your anger and depression, because it just made you feel like you just didn't care.
Right.
So, okay. And you feel like within the last year or 2, you have became withdrawn and trying to isolate yourself more and not be as social as normal. Okay. You've had no active suicide attempts.
Right.
The thought has passed your mind, but you've never had a specific plan in place.
Right.
Okay. You've had no thoughts or plans or anything to hurt anybody else. No homicidal feelings. On your abuse history, you state that, you know, when you were young, that you were poor, maybe didn't have electricity, but it was nothing, you didn't suffer any neglect or anything,
Right.
you know, from your parents that they could help.
Right.
Sexual abuse, maybe starting around the age 14, the older guys would come around and they would want to do stuff and you didn't know how to tell them no, or you didn't feel like you could tell them no,
Right.
even though you didn't want to do the stuff that they were wanting you to.
Right.
Okay. And then as you got older in your teen years, 16 to 18, then it became older men in their 20s that would do the same kind of abuse,
Right.
and you felt as if you couldn't say anything.
Right.
Okay, and then emotional abuse started when you were about 18. Emotional abuse from a boyfriend, and then the father of Cody, you suffered verbal and emotional abuse from him. Okay. In your family, you said there was no abuse, but when Cody was a young child, people may have gotten your parenting skills as a young 16-year-old as maybe being verbally abusive to a child because you didn't have the coping mechanisms and or the information maybe that you needed to have. Okay. And religious, you've attended the same church for the last 10 years. In the last 2 years, you have felt yourself withdrawing, not going as much, not being involved. Your social system, your best friend, you know, you're not as close as you once were, but you still feel like she's there if you need her, and you're there for her if she needs you. Sounds like that's pretty much all. And then, you know, we made the SMART goal that, you know, you have a subject, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, and it's time. And this is what we had decided earlier, is that your goal will be to attend 2 support group meetings that deal with incarcerated families in the next 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to help you as well as you are going to try to find some support group meetings where they are located, and we'll call the prison that Cody's in and see if they can give us any resources also, which I'm sure that they can. And then I've got 3 last questions for you. What are some of your coping skills that you have now in dealing with Cody being incarcerated?
Basically going to see him, lets me know that he's okay, like physically okay. And phone conversations and letters. And trying to stay busy. Although I'm not real motivated to stay busy, I still, when I am busy, I don't sit and ponder on it.
And overthink.
Yeah, overthink it.
Okay. And it is possible that he could be released before 2020, but if he does his full term, he won't be released until then. So tell me some of the things that you anticipate as being in the transition of him coming home.
Well, first of all, building trust back is going to be a really big and building trust is his choice, and being part of the, like, not that he's not going to be part of the family, but being able to participate in family things is going to, you know, and how that's going to work out, and how awkward that's going to be, and him being able to find his place is going to be a challenge.
Right.
Things change quickly anymore, and him being able to find his place in what society is then is going to be difficult and challenging for him.
Exactly. All right, and the last question that I have is, have you ever heard of Prison Talk?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that is a resource that I'm going to write out for you. It is an online prison information and family support community. So they have a lot of different resources that, you know, may be very useful to you, as well as an online support system community that you may join as well, that you might find interesting. So I will give you all the information about that, and you know, you can contact them. You know, if you want to, it's just a suggestion. So that is pretty much, you know, we've covered a lot of areas, a lot of information, you know, in this time period. Is there, you know, anything that you would like to add or share?
Not today, I don't think.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty good.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just leave this open to you. I would be willing to see you on an ongoing basis, if that's what you thought.
Okay.
You can just call here and make an appointment. I would suggest at the very first, you know, come in once a week or at least once every 2 weeks, you know, till we can get a hold of some of these emotions that we're feeling. And, you know, we set a couple of short-term goals, and I just wanted to, you know, you're going to set, you have a good relationship with Cody, and you're going to set good, consistent boundaries.
Yeah.
So, ongoing, so he doesn't take advantage of you when you might be vulnerable, or manipulate you when you might not be expecting it. And then another short-term goal is just being open and honest with John, your husband. Also, set boundaries with him. You may have to agree to disagree, but that, you know, is on him. And there are certain things that you are willing to do for your son because you are his mother, and you don't want to be caught off guard at Thanksgiving dinner and somebody say something about Cody getting in trouble or something like that, and then him look to you like, we didn't know that, when you actually did. And, you know, then that could have trust issues all in itself, with your husband. So, you know, I really enjoyed talking to you. I thank you for being open and honest and sharing this information with me. It is confidential, and you know, you've got a lot of strengths. You've dealt with a lot of things, and you know, you've been through a lot, and you've handled a lot in different ways. And so there are strengths that we can pull from, and you know, and just build with the weaknesses, you know, with your strengths of being such a caring, ongoing loving mother, you know, to the end, being a good wife, being a good student. You know, there's just several things that you have that you might not even realize right now that will come out, that are strengths that keep you going that you may not even know. But this session has come to an end, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.